Tennessee This Week from WATE's 6 on Your Side starts now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tennessee This Week. I'm Lori Tucker. Glad you're with us today. This week, Knoxville Mayor Indya Kincannon delivering her State of the City address, and Mayor Kincannon joins us now. So welcome.
Thank you. Glad to see you.
We want to hit some of the high points of your address. First of all, this is a $477.3 million budget proposal. Your proposal last year was $461.6 million. So you're proposing to keep the city's property tax rate the same. Here's the question. How are you able to propose a budget like this and not raise taxes?
Well, that's a great question, and the answer is good fiscal stewardship and a strong economy. We're a growing community. More people are moving here. They're spending money in Knoxville. And this is a stable, steady budget that reflects a slowing economy, but we have enough funds to make sure that it's a great place to live and we preserve a high quality of life.
A lot of people happy to hear that. And you pointed out the largest part of your budget proposal, more than 20% of it, is for police and firefighters. And you're proposing to spend a good chunk of that, $225,000 in targeted salary increases to bring firefighters up to market level. Why have they not been at market level so far?
Well, absolutely. Chief Sharp and Larry McAfee from the Firefighters Association saw that last year we addressed some major emergency level shortages and vacancies in KPD and brought them up to market. And they said, we need to do the same thing for fire to make sure we're fully staffed and being competitive. So I listened to Chief Sharp and Larry McAfee and said, okay, we're going to study this. And then we did. We found the gaps, and now we're funding it to make sure that our firefighters get excellent pay and fair, competitive wages.
You know, and you're also proposing to have the city cover stipends for the growing number of firefighters who get that extra training, advanced EMT, paramedic training. Let's talk about what went into that decision.
Yeah, well, last year alone, the firefighters answered 26,000 calls in the city of Knoxville, and the vast majority of those are medical. So we want to encourage our firefighters to become paramedics or get their advanced EMT. So one way to encourage that is to have on-site training and then also pay them more once they get that training. So they've answered the call enthusiastically, and now this budget includes money to reflect that more of our firefighters are getting that advanced training.
Incentive.
Yes.
All right, all right. You also want to allocate $350,000 for an explosives removal robot for the Knoxville Police Department. Everybody remembers probably last year, of course, a large box of explosives was discovered at CMC Recycling. The bomb squad technicians spent a lot of time trying to remove those explosives by hand. You were all over this, keeping up with it. So let's talk about what went into that.
Well, last October, we got that call, and it was a very scary prospect to have a smoldering box of explosives right in the middle of a community. As a team with the fire department, police department, KEMA, Red Cross and community leaders, we evacuated 1,000 people, and then they realized that our robot could get in there and do some take some pictures and stuff, but it wasn't capable enough to start doing the extraction. So our bomb squad police officers very heroically went in there, meticulously removed each stick one at a time until it was safe for them to dispose of the explosive things. So now we're going to be more prepared than ever. Our officers deserve up-to-date equipment, so we're going to have a robot that will still, not be able to do everything humans can do, but it can try to mitigate those risks next time. Hopefully there won't be a next time, but if there is a next time, it'll be there for us.
One more step. All right, thank you so much. Also switching gears now to housing. Obviously, we know more and more people think this is the place to be. We love it here. A lot of people coming in. More and more housing obviously needed as the city continues to grow. So talk about how your proposed budget would contribute to that.
Yeah, well, this budget allocates or proposes to allocate big, millions of dollars towards affordable housing. I think $8 million altogether. That would go towards additional homes at Western Heights. It would go towards addressing homelessness, more shelter beds, more support for our warming centers that have been saving lives this winter and the winter before. So it's a multi-dimensional approach, and our city council and this community knows that housing is in crisis, and so we're working to address that. We've already built or helped to build 2,600 new affordable homes in Knoxville in recent years, so we just got to keep moving.
All right, you mentioned homelessness. I want to talk a little bit more about that. You're proposing to allocate more than $1 million to prevent it. and to help those who are experiencing housing instability. On the other hand, you're also proposing to spend an additional $350,000 to increase the total number of shelter beds, as well as the warming centers you mentioned. So what does this say about the size of Knoxville's homeless population? We've been talking about this for years, and it feels like there hasn't really been a dent in this issue.
Well, homelessness is first and foremost a lack of housing. And I want to just say that I'm really grateful for the team-wide, community-wide effort on this, because it's not just a city problem, it's a national problem. And so I want to thank Mayor Jacobs and Knox County for working with the city to form the Joint Office of Housing Stability. And that has played a coordinating role to help the many compassionate people of our city who want to support compassionately people find housing, get off the streets, get into mental health treatment, drug rehab, whatever it takes. And so these shelter beds, these investments in permanent supportive housing, that's all part of a team approach to ending homelessness in Knoxville.
You know, working on a couple of boards with this very issue, I know that mental health is a huge component of this, and you've proposed extra funding for some of the agencies in our area who provide help with that.
Well, as part of a healthy community, we need access to health care. So this budget proposes significant dollars for Cherokee Health wants to put in a new clinic in Mechanicsville. So this budget supports that, and also an expansion of Interfaith Health Clinic so they can serve more working income people. They're working, but they can't afford health care, and they don't get it through their employer. So I really appreciate partnering up with these healthcare providers in our community.
Yeah, we can't forget not only the uninsured, but the underinsured.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Switching gears again, you say funding will support business development in Knoxville. How important is this for the city?
Well, at the beginning, you asked me, how are we able to have a balanced budget without a tax increase? And that's because of a strong economy. So we are really proud to continue to support the Knoxville Chamber, the Knoxville Entrepreneur Center, Centro Hispano, and other programs to help small businesses, large businesses. We are a growing economy. We need to make sure that we support continued business growth and good jobs, fair-paying jobs, jobs that support advanced energy and everything to go with that. We have a lot of opportunity here. And that strong economy makes it so we have the resources to support things like addressing homelessness.
You know, you made your address from the new multi-use stadium. We'll talk more about that in a moment. You're smiling big. I think a lot of people are. It's a beautiful facility. Your budget proposal calls for $12 million for projects at the Convention Center and the Knoxville Civic Auditorium and Coliseum. So people look at this beautiful big new stadium, and then they look at the Coliseum, and they're like, okay, what's going to be done to either replace this, rebuild it, or what's the plan here? Well,
it's our job to be good stewards of our public facilities. So luckily, we are going to address some deferred maintenance in World's Fair Park, in the Civic Auditorium, the Convention Center, and a lot of these are going to be investments that the general public can't see, and plumbing and HVAC and boilers and kitchen and other types of equipment like that. But the Civic Auditorium is needs some gusseting up and attention, and but it's got really strong bones. It's a beautiful design, and it's only 60 years old. So I think that it deserves saving. It's got a lot of history to it, and this budget will address some of those needs as well.
You talked about the World's Fair Amphitheater, and I know a lot of people have said, okay, the tenting above, whatever you call it, really needs some help.
Yes, it's an iconic, much beloved space. It's been here since the World's Fair, and now it needs an overhaul. So we want to address that, and this budget proposes to do that and fix it so before it becomes unfixable. But it's a beautiful space, and we're going to preserve it.
We're almost out of time. This has flown by, but we want to bring back the big new multi-use stadium. You made your announcement there on Friday. Talk to us about your thoughts about this.
Well, I smile every time I'm there, and I smile just talking about it because it's an example of what Knoxville can do when we all work together as a team. That's an effort that the city, the county, the state of Tennessee, Randy and Jenny Boyd, and other private partners, when we work together, we can do big things and cover Provident Health Park is a great example of that.
We were excited to bring the first game live on
Yeah, I
WATE.
know.
Our team was there, and you could feel that source of pride,
Yeah.
and we had chills just being in that beautiful new facility.
That's right. Knoxville Smokies, One Knox Soccer.
Yeah.
They just had their first game last night. It's a really exciting place to be, and it's going to be for generations to come.
All right. Mayor, thank you so much for being with us. We
Thank you, Lori.
appreciate it. Stay with us, everyone. Our panel of pundits weighs in right after this. We're back in 90 seconds. And welcome back to Tennessee This Week. A moment ago, we heard from Knoxville Mayor Indya Kincannon about her proposed budget priorities for next fiscal year, including possible pay raises for firefighters. So let's bring in our panel of pundits to talk about this. I did a quick change during the break. Here is Courtney Piper. We had to match here.
We did.
Courtney Piper, Craig Griffith, and Michael Covington. It's good to see everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Of course, before we talk about firefighters, let's go over, in general, your thoughts about her budget proposals.
Well, I think her budget hits all the big spots. It hits affordable housing, pay raises for public employees, what she wants to do in the community in terms of neighborhood improvement and things like that. And it does it without a tax increase, which, the magic word of, passing a budget with no tax increase. So, but I think the budget does miss out on a couple of key things that are on really in the public's mind now. Number one is what are they going to do with the former safety building site? Now that the museum appears to be not going there, appears to be maybe going somewhere else, but that's a big chunk of prime land in the downtown area. We've all heard a number of different suggestions for it. One of them is building a new Coliseum there. She touched on that in her budget address about doing some upgrades to the Civic Coliseum and the convention center down there. Would it be more beneficial to the community to design a state-of-the-art facility there? And then the second thing that I didn't hear any discussion of was the Gay Street Bridge. What is the future of that? And both of those are multi-million-dollar projects that will come up. I'm sure she didn't think many of those would be in her watch while she was mayor, but now all of a sudden they're on her plate. So it'll be interesting to see what she does with those.
Well, it's interesting because she has said in the past, well, we're looking down the road on structural changes when she'll be out of office at that point.
She will be.
What did you think, Courtney?
Well, when I read through the budget, what really struck me is the mayor's, first of all, fiscal responsibility. I think what's notable in this budget is the mayor is recommending a lump sum $25 million debt payment for the Knoxville Convention Center, which will save us millions of dollars over a number of years and allow us to pay off the convention center 2 years earlier. And so when you asked her how were you able to increase the budget without a tax increase, there are some really smart fiscal things that she's doing in here where she's been able to identify savings. Also, you can see that the city's leaning on partnerships to really achieve the mayor's top priorities. So she talked about some economic development, homelessness, and health. And so she's leaning on her partners and the city's partners to deliver on some of her top priorities, which is a really smart thing to do.
Michael?
Well, I've seen several mayoral budgets, and her budget looks a lot like many of the others. I like to see a mayor's emphasis on what will make the city better, and I think that she really made a good faith effort to do that, and she's done that every time. I look at budgets, just as Courtney said, she looked through budgets, and I looked through a budget the first time, and I could generally get a sense for where some money just might be wasted. I didn't see a lot of that. I looked at it a second time, I saw where there were monies that were allocated that won't necessarily make a significant dent in things like homelessness, but there's a consideration there. And so you look at the amount of money and you see the consideration that the mayor is putting on it. Outside of that, standard operating procedure, I think she hit all the bases, and I think she made significant allocations. Craig is right. The Gay Street Bridge is an issue. The safety center issue, for me, it's still an issue of why that prime real estate was not ideal for the safety center. I'm just curious about that.
The Gay Street Bridge the topic is closed for FY26, if you will, because the city has made it very clear they're going to stabilize it for pedestrian traffic, and that will give us a certain number of years out of it.
There's nothing new at this
point.
point.
There's nothing new that can be introduced for this FY26 budget that would change any direction with the Gay Street Bridge.
But if she wants to move it in a direction, she has to do that within the next 2 years.
Yes, she's making it pedestrian.
Well, the pedestrian, that's nice. We're going to have all that multi-million dollars for a walkway across the bridge when there's going to be another pedestrian bridge down the river. So, you know,
Craig,
I
if
think
you
the
are
long-term,
walking on your Chevrolets, okay, there's
what legs?
your Chevrolets. There is a big difference.
Is that a Chevrolet?
Yes,
Okay.
your Chevrolets. There is a big difference between where the Gay Street Bridge puts you and where that other potential pedestrian bridge that is not yet built yet gets you.
Well, there's also sidewalks on the Henley Street Bridge.
How are you going to cross the river, Craig?
The Henley Street Bridge.
The Henley Street Bridge.
Right,
That's still,
there's
again,
sidewalks there.
again.
So, but again, if she has the visions for that, it has to come up in the next couple of years. Otherwise, she's passed that on to the next mayor.
No, that's the appropriate place for it. She's made it very clear that that will be a pedestrian bridge for the next couple of years.
All right, let's move on to the Knoxville Civic Auditorium. And you brought up why couldn't you rebuild it over here at the site of the old safety complex, because we don't know what's going to happen. Jim Clayton has said, hey, I'm going to build one, but there's a lot of mystery around where and when and all those good things after several years of what seemed to be a commitment.
Right.
The mayor was pretty clear, not going to rebuild, not going to redo. She said the building is only 60 years old and it has good bones. So a lot of people have said, wow, I look at the baseball stadium, the multi-use stadium, and it's so exciting, and I can't help but think the Civic Coliseum really needs a major facelift. So let's talk more about that.
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. It needs a major. Only 60 years old in a public building like that is a long time. And so I think that it's worth taking a look at to see if, and when we had Gwen McKenzie on the program a couple of weeks ago, and she said that there needs to be a public process into what to do with that property now. Now, I totally agree with that. But one of those things I think that should be on the table is perhaps a relocation of the Civic Coliseum. So there's a number of things, you can do housing there, you can do other shopping, things like that. But I think you need to go into a whole universe of things that you can do there. It's a prime piece of property, so we need to make sure that we get that one right.
Courtney, what do you think about that? Keep it as is?
Again, this whole conversation is being spurred by a decision that was made only a couple weeks before the mayor presented this budget. And again, I'm looking at the announcement that we will not have a science museum at the old public safety site as an opportunity for us to take a step back and think about what is the best use for these land masses, the Civic Auditorium included. So the plan for FY26 for the Civic Auditorium, great. I would not count out a completely new Civic Auditorium in the next 5 to 10 years. We can certainly get a couple more years out of it, but I would not count out getting a new one in the next decade.
Interesting. What about you, Michael?
I can't help but think, okay, we want to sustain the Coliseum and the auditorium, but we also want to apply planned obsolescence to those facilities. So we're allowing the facilities to degrade over a period of time, while we're also suggesting that we could spruce it up and sustain its life longer. It seems as though we've got two different agendas pitted against each other. And I don't know that the Coliseum and the auditorium will be best served by that. I'm just not real clear as to what we're going to do and if it makes sense.
You brought up the World's Fair Park Amphitheater. It's really in terrible shape right now. We all can agree on that. You just look at it, and it's become an eyesore when you're down there around World's Fair Park. And there is, $7 million going into that. We remember when there were efforts to just get rid of the whole thing, not that long ago.
No. Oh, 20 years.
Well, to me, when you reach a certain age, 20 years is not that long. You think, was it 5?
It's,
But
yeah.
no, there was serious talk about just getting
yes.
rid of it.
And I've always maintained that the best thing to do in the World's Fair Park is to put a stage like that on the end of the performance lawn, so that you can bring in much more attractive groups and events to that area. And there's a lot of nostalgia for the Tennessee Amphitheater dating back to the World's Fair. But again, what is going to be the best thing in the long run? because Michael is right in terms of, ever since I was working in city government, there seemed to be a yearly allocation to the Civic Coliseum to repair the chillers, to repair the ice plant that makes the ice for the hockey team, do new bathrooms. So every year there seems to be a significant amount of money in the budget to go to that. And so it tells me, is that time to go to maybe perhaps building a whole new facility? But again, I think that should be part of the public conversation that we have on what to do with that land that Gwen McKenzie, Councilman McKenzie, suggested. So we'll see.
Well, it has the potential to be beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just a little jewel in our city that's a jewel in and of itself.
It's one of these pieces of civic furniture that will retain and recruit folks in the working age range, which is 24 to 54, 55. So the more that we either build or maintain or enhance these pieces of civic furniture, the better our community becomes and the more able we are to see some of these economic development opportunities that the mayor talked about.
All right, Michael, before we head to break.
Well, I think our intentions are good. I just don't know if we always think things through before we move forward. And I'm hoping, especially with this piece of property, that Mr. Clayton decided he just didn't want. I'm hoping that, as Courtney was saying, we bring the community in and allow the community to have an investment in terms of the thought process that goes into what will occupy that land and how will it benefit Knoxville.
And we, of course, will keep asking those questions and
Yes.
hopefully bring you some answers. Everyone, there is much more to come on Tennessee This Week. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Tennessee This Week. Knoxville Mayor Indya Kincannon proposing a pay increase for firefighters. That's just one in a series of proposals, of course, in her budget that she talked about on Friday. So let's bring our panel of pundits back in to talk about this. Firefighters coming after the big sweeping changes, if you want to call them sweeping, for police. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think it shows an effort to make sure that our public service employees are getting paid market rates. If you'll notice in the Governor Lee's budget, his proposal was to make sure that we have all teachers up to $50,000 per year, the going rate for teachers. And I think this is a reflection of that, to make sure that our firefighters are paid reflective. And it's interesting, firefighting has sort of changed over the years. Now firefighters really only fight fires 2% of their time. It's mostly, as the mayor noted, emergency medical calls that they go out on. So it's a change. It's an evolving job that needs to be compensated at the market rate. And I think this is certainly a big step toward that.
Well,
Obviously a core service.
Yeah, that's
our
what I was
area.
going to comment too. It's really smart of the mayor, first of all, to get the feedback that she got from our fire chief and the representative for the firefighters, but then also to incorporate the fact that our firefighters often act as first responders. And so the more folks that we can incentivize to get that paramedic training, advanced EMT training, the safer and healthier off we will be as a community. I live in Holston Hills, and we have a fire station just outside of Holston Hills on Magnolia and Asheville Highway. And so knowing that those folks could immediately respond to any sort of emergency in our neighborhood makes me just feel good, feel safe. And so I think that was really smart of her to not only make sure that our firefighters are getting compensated well, but they are incentivized to have these extra credentials that will keep our communities safer.
And as our city grows,
Yes.
this is an attractive feature.
Absolutely.
Well, I like the idea that we are incentivizing firefighters to add to their training the medical care, being able to do much more. It makes our community safer in so many ways, because a person that can fight a fire can also start your heart again, with an arrhythmia machine. So I like the idea that they are incentivizing training and that firefighters are going to be rewarded for their commitment to the job.
All right. We don't have a lot of time. I want to touch on the problem and the issue of homelessness, and we could talk about that for an entire show. But there really hasn't been any major movement in this. The problem just seems to be getting worse.
Well, the mayor is absolutely right in the interview. It's not a problem of homelessness, it's a problem of housing.
Yeah.
And finding permanent supportive housing that offers the support services, mental health, perhaps drug treatment programs and things like that. To get the issue of homelessness and housing is just not one thing. It's a numerous factors put in together. And it'll be interesting to see if we have more problems now, because if the economy does go south, if there's more unemployment, will we have yet another uptick in homelessness?
All right, can you believe it? We're out of time.
Oh,
all right.
I can't believe it.
Thanks everyone for being with us. We appreciate you so much. We'll see you next time.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.